So is there a perfect landing page? The short answer is no, because what is a great landing page for an offer for a $10,000, $20,000 program is going to be different than a perfect landing page for a 495, free plus shipping book funnel, right? They're all going to need certain elements that are important, right? And especially if coming from TikTok, a really big factor there is what's happening above the fold for TikTok and most social, but specifically TikTok. It's what's happening on this. Like when I load your website from your ad, everything visible on this screen without scrolling, that's the most important piece, right? Because the reality is most people, they're going to click your ad, they're going to land on your website, they're not going to scroll. They're going to make their decision of whether they're interested or not interested off of the information they see visibly right there on that screen. And so really making sure you're maximizing that real estate, which means having a really strong headline, which means having a really strong, compelling visual right out of the gate, which means having, ideally some social proof and third party validation that's also visible above the fold, which means ideally having a call to action that's also clickable above the fold. So if they want to buy, they don't have to scroll any further, right? Not making it too much work on them. Those are really like some key elements that you're going to want to focus on. And so like one of the things I see a lot of people do, especially in the e-commerce space, they're running Shopify stores or stuff, is like they just have a descriptive product title, right? It just says what the product is instead of making that like product name above the fold like a engaging title, or like treating that like a headline. So instead of just saying, black phone clicker for your remote photos, it's like giving it a interesting, engaging headline that when somebody lands on the page, is like, oh, that's cool, that's exciting, like it's unique, it's different, it's special. So yeah, and that's a big part of it. Testing is going to be a big part of it. A lot of people don't do enough testing on their landing pages, which is a huge mistake. It's because the reality is like testing requires lots of work, right? Like to constantly be testing is just it's a pain. It's like I got to constantly come up with ideas. I got to have a control. I got to have a variable on a test. I got to have a schedule to follow on the testing. I got to be looking at data and analyzing data. And most people, if they do it sporadically, or they do it on one element. It's like, I'm going to test my ads. Okay, you can't just test one piece, right? You need to be looking at the entire journey that somebody's going through, and you need to be consistently testing elements, most important elements in all those assets, right? So you need to be constantly testing your ads. You need to be constantly testing your key variables on your landing page. You need to be constantly testing what's happening in your post-purchase funnel. So constantly testing the post-purchase, right? So like upsell number one, that first upsell, most people just put in their upsells in their funnel and they're like, cool. It's like, well, you got to are you presenting that upsell in the most attractive way, right? Is the messaging good? Is it the right price? Like not enough people test price. They just settle on like they put their finger in the air, like where the wind's coming, $29.99. It's the right price. Everyone charges $29.99, so I'm going to charge $29.99. It's like, how much elasticity does your product have? Like you could be, it could be your customer, because the product is like high value and there's a lot of demand for it, like $39.99. There could be no change in conversion rate, but you just picked up $10 in margin. All that to say, the landing page is super important. There's not a necessarily universal formula or framework this is if you run any business, is the perfect landing page for you. But what I would focus on is everything that happens when you load that page on the phone. Really focus on headline, subheadline, compelling hook, social proof, third-party validation, having a really clean, descriptive, straightforward call to action that's right above, that's big, that's descriptive, that's not the same color and blended in with everything else on the page. And that's what I would focus on testing and like investing your time initially. And then you can, then there's plenty of other things on the page that you can eventually test. But really, like where you're going to want to focus on is the things most people are going to see. That's going to get them to actually go to the rest of the page. Otherwise, the rest of the page doesn't matter.